In the beginning, before kingdoms rose and before the first human spoke the first trembling word, there was a rebellion that split the heavens like a blade of fire. Among the rebels was one whose name still echoes through ancient tablets, forbidden scrolls, and whispered legends, a name tied to desolation, to forbidden knowledge, to a fall so catastrophic that even the angels trembled. Azazel, the one cast into the wilderness, the one blamed for corruption, the one whose story was buried, sealed, erased, yet never forgotten. Tonight, you will walk into the darkness where few dare to look. Tonight, you will uncover the truth humanity was never supposed to see. The truth about Azazel. This is not just a story. It is a revelation. A forbidden window into the ancient world before the flood, where angels walked among humans, and one became the symbol of everything heaven feared. Prepare yourself. Because once you hear the real story of Azazel, you will never read the Bible the same way again. What if I told you that one single fallen being changed the entire destiny of humanity? What if the forbidden knowledge he revealed shaped the weapons we forge today, the beauty standards we chase, and even the spiritual conflicts we face in the shadows? And what if everything we were taught about him is only half the truth? In the next few minutes, you will discover why Azazel was considered more dangerous than any other fallen angel. What secret teachings he passed to humanity. The real reason he was imprisoned in the desert. And the shocking ending that explains what will happen to him in the end times. If you stay until the final moment, you will understand why his story matters now more than ever. This is the forbidden truth about Azazel. Before we uncover the ancient secrets hidden for thousands of years, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because every week we bring the deepest biblical mysteries that the world desperately needs to understand. Your support lets this message reach more people who are searching for truth. Now, let's step into the darkness of history together. Azazel's name appears in some of the oldest writings ever discovered. His story is woven through the Book of Enoch, the Torah, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and ancient Mesopotamian traditions. But what makes him so mysterious is not just who he was, but what humanity has done with his memory. Some cultures painted him as a demon, others as a fallen angel. Some even suggested he was a symbol rather than a being. But when you put every ancient record together, piece by piece, a pattern emerges. Not of a myth, not of a metaphor, but of a real entity whose impact on humanity was so severe, heaven's judgment was swift and merciless. To understand Azazel, you must first understand the world before the flood. A world that looked nothing like the world we know today. A world where angels descended to earth, and mankind was never the same. Let's go back. Back to the days of the Watchers. Back to the moment everything changed. The Book of Enoch describes 200 angels known as the Watchers, whose purpose was to observe humanity from afar. They were not meant to interfere, not meant to teach, not meant to walk among mortals. But when they saw the beauty of human women, desire overwhelmed obedience. Led by Semyaza, these watchers made a pact on Mount Hermon, swearing an irreversible oath to take human wives and teach forbidden knowledge. Once that oath was sealed, there was no turning back. But within this group, Azazel was different. He wasn't just a participant. He was a catalyst. While the others taught fragments of knowledge, Azazel unleashed entire systems of power weaponry, seduction, warfare, sorcery transformations that altered the human story forever. The ancient texts emphasize this repeatedly. Azazel taught humanity how to make swords, daggers, shields, and every instrument of violence. He taught women how to alter their appearance, crafting the earliest forms of makeup, jewelry, and enchantment. He introduced humanity to the first forms of witchcraft, charms, and astrological patterns. It was as if a gate opened, and everything heaven wanted to protect mankind from flooded the earth at once. But why Azazel? Why was he the one blamed above all? The answer lies not only in what he taught, but in what it cost the world, and that cost was devastating. When humanity began learning the arts Azazel revealed, a cultural explosion took place. Weapons led to violence. Beauty enhancements fueled envy, lust, and corruption. Astrological symbols became tools for controlling fate. Sorcery created illusions of power. The world became unrecognizable. And soon, the children of the Watchers, giant hybrids known as the Nephilim, began to dominate the earth. Their violence, their hunger, their power distorted creation itself. The earth cried out. Humanity suffered. Heaven watched the chaos unfold. And God, whose patience is infinite yet purposeful, knew the infection had to be stopped before the world drowned. Judgment would begin with the ringleader, Azazel. When Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah, was taken by God to deliver messages to the fallen angels, the Watchers trembled when they heard what would happen. But Azazel's fate was unique, separate from the others, harsher, more absolute. He was to be bound by the archangels, dragged to a place of desolation, covered in darkness, imprisoned until the final day of judgment. The Book of Enoch names the place of his imprisonment, Dudael, a barren wilderness, a land of sharp stones, a place where nothing grows. There, Azazel was cast. There he remains, according to ancient tradition, awaiting the day when he will be thrown into the fire forever. But why such a severe penalty? Because, as the text says, the whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin. All sin. Not some, not part, but all. This line has puzzled scholars for centuries, but its meaning is deeper than it first appears. Azazel wasn't blamed for everything that humans did. He was blamed for introducing the tools, the knowledge, and the systems that made sign multiply beyond measure. And that is why he was isolated forever. Now we turn to the part of the story most people never hear. Because Azazel's imprisonment did not erase his influence. It only contained his presence. The knowledge he released still echoed across cultures. Metallurgy evolved into modern warfare. Beauty enchantments transformed into entire industries. Sorcery and divination reappeared in civilizations from Babylon to Egypt. Weapon making became a foundational pillar of human history. Azazel may have been bound, but humanity continued walking the path he opened. This is where the story takes a darker turn. Because ancient Jewish writings reveal something chilling. The goat sent into the wilderness on the Day of Atonement, the scapegoat, was traditionally associated with Azazel. This was not a symbol of worship. It was a symbol of banishment, of rejection, of casting sin back to the one who unleashed it. The Day of Atonement ritual had two goats, one for the Lord, one for Azazel. The first was sacrificed. The second was sent into the wilderness, carrying the sins of Israel back to the source. Think about the weight of that symbolism. Every year, Israel symbolically said, Azazel, take back what you brought into the world. This is the dimension of his story that reveals a truth buried under centuries of translation confusion. Azazel is not just a character. He is a legacy of corruption, and a legacy of judgment. But here's where the story becomes even more fascinating. Because Azazel's name does not appear in the early chapters of Genesis, his story exists between the lines, in the shadows, in the gaps, hidden but present. And this leads to the central question of the climax. Does Azazel return? And if so, how? Let's move toward the moment where all the ancient threads converge. Of all the mysteries surrounding Azazel, none is more intriguing than the location of his imprisonment. Some ancient sources point to a deep crag in the Judean desert, others to a barren valley east of Jerusalem. The Dead Sea Scrolls mention a region filled with jagged cliffs where the ritual for the scapegoat was performed. But the Book of Enoch gives the clearest image. A place of isolation, a land where sunlight cannot penetrate, a prison carved not by human hands, but by angels. Imagine this. Azazel, once radiant, once powerful, now bound hand and foot, surrounded by jagged black rock, unable to move, unable to escape, aware of everything that happens in the world he once corrupted, but utterly unable to interfere. This is where he waits. This is where time stands still. And this is where the next part of his story begins. Many people think the Bible never discusses Azazel outside Leviticus, but the truth is, his shadow stretches far into prophecy. Revelation speaks of beings imprisoned in the abyss, waiting for the appointed time to be released. Early Christian writers believed Azazel was among them. Jewish mystics believed his final judgment would be a spectacle for all creation to witness. But what happens when he is finally destroyed? Why does Scripture highlight his end with such significance? Because Azazel is not just part of the past. He is part of the conflict that spans all of human history. When Christ returns, all forces of darkness face their final judgment. All the fallen, all the corruptors, all the deceivers. And Azazel, whose influence shaped the early world, will be destroyed forever. But before that day comes, there is one more question. A question that echoes through every ancient text about him. Why did Azazel do it? Why did he rebel? Why did he teach humanity what was forbidden? And the answer will lead us into the climax. What drove Azazel to defy heaven? Some believe it was desire. Others power. Others think he wanted to elevate mankind beyond God's intended boundaries. But ancient texts give subtle clues. Clues that paint a picture of a being who believed he could reshape creation according to his own vision. Picture a world where angels walked among humans, not as guardians, but as gods. A world where knowledge was unrestricted, dangerous, intoxicating, uncontrollable. A world where divine order was replaced by chaos disguised as enlightenment. Azazel saw potential. He saw opportunity. He saw ambition. But in trying to elevate humanity beyond its design, he broke it. He broke the world. He broke innocence. He broke the boundary that kept heaven and earth in harmony. And when the flood washed away the corruption, Azazel's legacy remained trapped beneath the waters. But the spiritual battle he ignited remains alive to this day. Everything we've uncovered so far brings us to a single point. A point of revelation. A point where all the ancient threads converge. The rebellion of the Watchers, the corruption of the pre-flood world, the imprisonment in Dewdale, the scapegoat ritual, the shadow of prophecy, the final judgment, all of it leads to one climactic truth. The truth humanity was never meant to forget. The truth that echoes louder today than ever before. It's time for the climax. Here it is. The forbidden truth about Azazel. Azazel represents the moment humanity chose knowledge over obedience, and the moment a heavenly being chose rebellion over glory. His story is not just about weapons or makeup or sorcery. It is about the origin of corruption, not sin itself, but the magnification of sin. Azazel took what was internal and gave it external tools. He weaponized human nature. He accelerated human darkness. He multiplied everything that was already broken. This is why he was punished more severely than the others. This is why his name was tied to the ritual of carrying sin into the wilderness. This is why ancient writings say, to Azazel, ascribe all sin, because the systems of corruption he unleashed still influence the world today. Every war, every exploitation, every elevation of vanity above purpose, every twisting of God-given beauty into manipulation, its roots reach back to him. But here's the most powerful part of the reveal. Azazel's story is not just about corruption. It is about accountability. The Day of Atonement ritual did not just cast sin into the wilderness. It symbolized something deeper. Sin returns to its source. Darkness pays its debt. Corruption is not eternal. It will end. Azazel's imprisonment is a prophecy that all spiritual corruption will one day be judged. And that judgment is certain. So what is the moral of Azazel's story? That knowledge without wisdom destroys. That rebellion without cause corrupts. That every action echoes across history, whether angelic or human. And that no darkness, no matter how ancient, no matter how powerful, escapes judgment. Azazel fell because he believed he could rewrite the order of creation. But his fall became a warning for all time. Nothing can stand against the design of God. Nothing can outsmart the Creator. Nothing can escape justice forever. And that is why Azazel's story matters today. Because the same world he once corrupted is the world God promises to restore. Thank you for watching until the end. If you want to dive even deeper into the mysteries of the Watchers, the Nephilim, and the ancient battles between light and darkness, watch the next video linked right here. There is so much more to uncover, and your journey has just begun.